one. Okay, so chapter 11. Let's get into it. All right, there are 5 objectives, I believe, in this chapter. Yes. So let's go through them. You should be able to explain report functions and types used in the digital age workplace and understand direct and indirect organizational strategies. Describe the report writing style as well as your typical report formats. Here's your old friend. Apply the 3x3 writing process to contemporary business reports to create well-organized documents. Show a firm grasp of audience and purpose. 3, locate and evaluate secondary sources such as databases and web resources and understand how to conduct credible primary research. Identify the purposes and techniques of citation and documentation in business reports and avoiding plagiarism. Generate, use, and convert numerical data to visual aids and create meaningful and attractive graphics. So here we go. Digging into research at Pew, I would suggest that you read that. It's a fact tank, which means they conduct research and publicize reports, the results of reports to the public. And they talk about how their reports are detailed as a result of a series of steps the writing team takes to complete it, which analyze the problem, conduct the research, illustrate the data, write it, revise, and proofread. Critical thinking is here. These are questions you should consider at times. And Pew demands excellence of its report writers. Team members must possess top-notch copy editing, proofreading, and writing skills. So, learning objective 1, reporting in the digital age workplace, I'm sorry. Management decisions in many organizations are based on information submitted in the forms of reports. Routine reports keep managers informed about completed tasks, projects, and work in progress. Historian and author David McCullough, I think, said it best, trying to plan for the future without a sense of the past is like trying to cut flowers. I haven't thought about that a whole lot, but there's a certain part of that I agree with. The larger an organization is, the more vital the exchange and flow of information becomes, definitely. To manage an avalanche of information in today's organizations, mass corporations, and even some smaller companies are using business intelligence software. And they say the information looks a lot like figure 11.1. And it's the next page. All right. So I think this looks like a lot of stuff, like a lot of information. Executive monitoring dashboards provide a real-time view of an organization and its performance. And so the control panel can be accessed by web browser, desktop, computer, tablet, smartphone. Leads inactive for 30 days, opportunities past close dates. I think that means they missed the deadline. Opportunities that's been inactive. Here's the various people working on it. Stretch growth, target growth last year. So this is where they were last year. Year-to-date sales versus last year. Open deals versus last year. And win ratio versus last year. And then here's all the stuff. This is a lot of information. So business reports range from informal bulleted lists and half-page trip reports to formal 200-page financial forecasts. Many reports today are delivered and presented digitally, email messages, PDFs, slide decks. Truthfully, I'm not real sure what a slide deck is. I can imagine what it might be, but I don't know for sure. Although reports vary greatly in length, content, form, and formality, they all have one or more of the following purposes. Okay, they all have, oh heck. They all do convey information, answer questions, and solve problems. Now let's find out about these kind of reports. Information reports present data without analysis or recommendations and are primarily informational. Okay. Trip report describing an employee's visit to a trade show, information. How many people did he speak to or she speak to? How did it go? What questions were asked? Just general information. Analytical reports takes a little bit more time. We provide data or findings or conclusions. If requested, writers may supply recommendations. Um, let's see. Alternatively, let's say you work for a company that's considering a specific building for women-only gym, and you're asked to study the location suitability. You may have to write a feasibility report, an analysis of alternatives, and a recommendation. So if it's a women-only gym, you might want to have it near a shopping mall, near grocery stores, near a daycare center. Not that men don't go to shopping malls, daycare centers, and grocery stores, but you would have to assume that the majority of the women, when they drop off the kids, if they're headed to work or pick up the kids, they would do this, so that type of thing. To distinguish among findings, conclusions, recommendations, consider the example of an audit report. The auditor compiles facts and figures, the findings of the report, drawing inferences from the findings. Then the auditor arrives at conclusions. Organizational strategy, so you do an audience analysis maybe. Like other business reports, reports may be organized directly and indirectly. Now, one of your assignments for this week for homework is, I think, I will go over it, talks about whether something's direct or indirect. The reader's expectations and the content. So if readers are informed, if readers are eager to have the results for just tell me what you got to tell me. If readers are supportive, then you're going to go the direct strategy. It means informational or analytical, and these are the parts. If your readers need to be educated or persuaded, or they may be disappointed or hostile, you do indirect, which is similar to what we've been saying all along. And it's called an analytical report, but it has these things in it. It's the same thing as this analytical report over here, only if you notice introduction, problem, conclusions, facts, findings, and discussion. If it fits one of these, you're going to go introduction of the problem, give them the facts, discuss the analysis, then do the conclusion. So you kind of mix things up between the two. Direct strategy, and the purpose for writing is presented close to the beginning of a report. So now we're going to go over that graphic. The organizational strategy is direct, opens with an introduction followed by facts and a summary. Legal letterhead presents introduction and facts without analysis or recommendation. Here's what that looks like. Arranges facts of a report into sections with descriptive headings. Free consultation, this is what it should look like. And here's tips for letter reports. Emphasizes benefits in paragraph headings with boldface. Why boldface? Why do you think boldface? What do you think? Okay, tells the reader what's coming up. Catches their eye to where maybe they don't want to read about free consultation. They just want to read about the document review. So they don't have to read through all this to find out that they want here. Oh, it did go on me. Yay. Identify second and succeeding pages with headings. It would be in your header. Again, there's a bolded. Use parallel side headings for consistency and readability. So select the attorney's free plan, publicize it, and the summary, and then close it. And I apologize for the blurriness. This page just came out of that way, not me from the publisher. So they may be organized directly, especially when readers are supportive. Figure 11.4 illustrates such an arrangement. Indirect strategy is when conclusions and recommendations, if requested, appear at the end of the report. So, much better. Isn't that better? So applies memo format for short, informal, internal report. Memo formats are usually one page. Yep. So you have a lot to say in a little bit of space. So this is the subject. This is the introduction, as it says over here. This is the recommendations, 1, 2, 3, and then findings and analysis here. All right. Report writing style. Reports can range from informal to formal, depending on their purpose, their audience, and their setting. Research reports from consultants to their clients should be more formal. project objectivity, authority, impartiality. Office worker once called a grammar hotline with this problem. We just sent a report to our headquarters and was returned with this comment. Put it in third person. What do they mean? The hotline experts explained that management apparently wanted a more formal writing style. Third person constructions, the company or the researcher instead of we or I. In other words, nothing personal, which is very typical. Letter format. Use letter format for short, informal reports, usually 8 or fewer pages. Office stationery, date, inside address, salutation, complimentary close. So let's look at formal versus informal. Remember, I've told you that when it does these graphics, this kind of summarizes what they're telling you in a nutshell, but this gives a lot of good information too. But if you're pushed for time, you need to really pay attention to this. Formal writing versus the use. Thesis, research studies, controversial, complex reports. Informal, short routines, reports. Reports for familiar audiences, that's people that you may know or that you feel comfortable with. Non-controversial, people aren't going to be upset with what you're telling them. Most reports for company insiders. Company insiders are people that knows the company really well and are either work for the company or are quote unquote friends of the company. The effect is for formal impression of objectivity, accuracy, professionalism, and the writer and the reader, you're making a report. You don't have to know them. Informal is a feeling of warmth, personal involvement, closest, like maybe a departmental thing, or customers that are real familiar with the company. Characteristics for the formal, traditional, no first person pronouns, use of third person. A lot of my students want a tendency to write I, we, us. That's not what you want to do here. First person pronouns and contractions are beginning to gain acceptance, which is not there. Don't use contractions. Use of passive voices. The study was conducted. Complex sentences or long words. Absence of humor and figures of speech. Don't. Reduced useful, colorful objectives, and don't editorialize. That means go on and on and on. Where you're kind of giving your opinion, throwing in other opinions. It gets to be really long. Characteristics of an informal writing style. You can do first person pronouns. You can use contractions. You can have active voice verbs, shorter sentences, familiar words, occasional use of humor. Be careful if you do this, because what you think is funny, there's almost bound to be somebody else that doesn't think it's funny. Useful, occasional use of colorful language speech. I disagree with this one. Okay, I don't think there's ever a time for colorful speech. Never, 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 ever. Because like someone up here that I was showing that say will object with if you say something funny, they're not going to understand it. They're not going to think it's funny. I'll guarantee you there'll be somebody in the audience or somebody that you're presenting to that will not appreciate this. I disagree with the author. And acceptance of author's opinions and ideals. Memos and email formats. For short informal reports that stay within the company, memo format is appropriate. Let's see, lost my page. It should begin date, to, from, and subject, which may be all caps or lowercase. Shown 11.4. Like letter reports, memos, reports differ from regular memos in length. Use of headings, deliberate organization. Manuscript format. For longer, more formal reports, use a manuscript format, printed on plain paper instead of letterhead. They begin with a title, followed by the headings and subheadings, kind of like a regular report. Forms and templates. Office workers use pre-printed forms for repetitive data, such as monthly sales reports, performance appraisal. Today, such forms are available digitally, so you could just type it in the computer. But employees can customize the templates, and there are standardized headings. Digital format. Digital media allows writers to produce and distribute reports in electronic form, not hard copy. Yep. With Adobe Acrobat, any report can be converted into a PDF. that retains its format. Also, increasingly, reports are not static, means that there is some animation or will be converted to video. Second paragraph, how digital reports are presented depends on their purpose. Okay. Many slide presentations today are not intended for verbal delivery. Rather, these slide decks may feature more text than traditional slides. They're also heavy on meaningful graphics. The reason graphics are so big, you guys can stop and think about this yourself. If you have to do a report for somebody, if somebody has to give you information, think, would you rather look at a lot of words and then try to follow what the words are saying? Or would you rather them have to try where they convert all those words and all the stuff they're trying to tell you into either a PowerPoint or an easily readable chart that has just about everything that the word said in a chart? I'm a very visual learner. I'm a very visual type person. For me, it's give me the chart. Let me look at the graphs. I have to be able to understand them though. Let me look at the PowerPoint. And then if I have questions, I can go back and read about it. That's me. Um, Cloud-based software such as Prezi and SlideRocket. The beautiful thing about the cloud is wherever there is an internet connection and you have a computer, you can hook up to the cloud and access your presentation. Many slide presentations today are not intended for verbal delivery. Standalone reports, slide decks are often posted online. And objective 2 is not real long, so we're going to go on, keep on rocking. Applying the 3x3 writing process to contemporary reports. Now, contemporary reports still are and used to be the more formal reports. And so here it says in earlier chapters, the 3x3 writing process was helpful in guiding short projects. That same process is even more necessary when writers are preparing longer projects, such as reports and proposals. So specific steps is you have to analyze the problem and the purpose. So why is it doing it and what's the problem? Then you have to be a mind reader and anticipate your audience and the issues. Prepare a work plan and conduct the research. Then organize it, analyze it, interpret, illustrate it, compose a first draft, edit, proofread, and evaluate. So the amount of time you spend on each step depends on you and your report task. Complex analytical report might demand a comprehensive work plan, extensive research, careful data analysis, a lot of work. To illustrate the planning stages of a report, we will watch Emily Mason develop a report she's preparing for her boss, Joshua Nichols. Joshua asked Emily to investigate the problem of transportation for sales reps. Currently, FarmGen reps visit customers, mostly doctors and hospitals, usually in company leased cars. Few reps drive their own, receiving reimbursements. In 3 months, FarmGen leasing agreements for 14 cars expire, and Josh is considering a major change. Emily's task is to investigate the choices and report her findings. Okay, so we're not going to read all this. We're just going to kind of jump to these important parts. Analyzing the problem and the purpose. She went to her boss and wanted him to really define the problem. So she wrote the following statement to clarify it, both for her and her boss, so that they both are on the same page, okay? Problem, leases on all company cars will be expiring in 3 months. FarmGen must decide whether to renew them or develop a new policy regarding transportation for sales reps. Expenses and paperwork for employee-owned cars seem excessive. So the question is, what plan should FarmGen follow in providing transportation for its sales reps? So here's the statement. Here's the question. This is what is going to drive the research. So her statement of purpose is to recommend a plan that provides sales reps with cars to be used in their calls. And she wasn't sure how he wanted her to get here. So since we have this now, she had questions. What did he expect? Did he want a comparison of costs for buying and leasing? Should she conduct research to pinpoint exact reimbursement costs? Did he want her to do all the legwork, present her findings, and let him make a decision? Or did he want her to evaluate the choices and make a recommendation? So she got what she got the answers. So purpose is to recommend a plan that provides the sales reps. Okay, Written purpose. Is it a good idea because it defines the focus? Is a good idea because it defines the focus of the report. Choose action verbs telling you what to do. Okay. Analyze, choose, investigate, compare, justify, evaluate. Okay, so that needs to be done. Some reports only require a simple statement to investigate, expand teller hours, whatever. Here's her statement of purpose. Make sure it's kept going. So, scope and limitations. What issues or elements are being investigated? Scope statement prepares the audience by clearly defining which problem or problems will be analyzed. To determine the scope or how much, Emily brainstormed with Josh and others to pin down her tasks. So she had a meeting, she brought people together. She learned that FarmGen currently had enough capital to consider purchasing a fleet of cars, just outright purchasing them. So they create their own carpool. Joshua also told her that employee satisfaction was almost as important as cost effectiveness, which is cool. Moreover, he disclosed his suspicion that employee-owned cars were costing FarmGen more than the leased cars. So she's got a lot of work for her. For this report, Emily realized that her conclusions and recommendations might apply only to reps in her Kansas City sales district. It probably wouldn't work for the reps in Seattle, Phoenix, or Atlanta. Another limitation was time. She had to complete the report in 4 weeks. So she has now expanded her statement of purpose. The purpose of this report is to recommend a plan that provides sales reps with cars to be used in their calls. The report will compare costs for 3 plans: outright ownership, leasing, and compensation. It will also measure employee reactions to each plan. The report is significant because FarmGen's current leasing agreement expires March 31st, and an improved plan could reduce cost and paperwork. And then she went and took it to somebody to see if he agreed. Anticipating the audience and the issues is her next step. So she considered her primary and secondary readers. What do my readers need to know? What do they already know? What is their educational level? How will they react? What sources will they trust? And how can I make this information readable, believable, and memorable? So she came up with 3 tentative solutions, and they became her direction. What plans should FarmGen use to transport sales reps? Purchase cars outright. Well, if you do that, how much capital? How much would it cost to insure them, operate them, and maintain them? And do employees prefer using company-owned cars? Should they continue to lease cars? What's the best lease price available? How much would it cost to insure, operate, and maintain? And do employees prefer leased cars? And should the company compensate employees for using their own cars? How much has it cost in the past? How much paperwork? And do employees prefer being compensated for using their own cars? And then you break it down into subproblems. Then you have a work plan. After analyzing the problem, anticipate the audience, factor the problem, and you're ready. So you have a statement of problem, you have a statement of purpose, and then you did a research strategy to including a description of potential sources. And a tentative outline that factors the problem into manageable chunks and a work schedule so you can get it done on time. A work plan gives the complete picture of a project because the usefulness and quality of any report rests primarily on its data, and you want to have a clear research strategy. So we're going to be looking at 11.6. This tentative outline guides investigation, and it does not determine the content or order of the final report. So that's objectives 1 through 2. We're going to start with 3 in a minute.